Good morning, dear students. Today, I, Mrs. Anne Marie, is here with the new chapter, The Beggar, from the book Moments, Class Ninth. So, we'll start with the introduction. The Beggar is the story of the transformation of a beggar into a good person. The behavior of a woman made him leave alcohol and lead a good life. So let's start. Kind sir, have pity. Turn your attention to a poor, hungry man. For 3 days I have had nothing to eat. I haven't 5 kopecks for a lodging. I swear it before God. For 8 years I was a village school teacher. And then I lost my place through intrigues. I fell a victim to calumny. It is a year now since I had anything to do. Kopecks means Russian coin equal to 100 of a ruble. Now, a man was begging alms, and he said that he had not eaten anything for the last 3 days, and he did not even have 5 kopecks to pay for a room to spend the night at. He swore by God that he spoke the truth. He had been a school teacher in a village for 8 years, but lost that job due to the conspiracy of his colleagues. For the last 1 year, he was without work. The advocate Sergei looks at the fawn colored overcoat of the suppliant, at his dull, drunken eyes, at the red spot on either cheek, and it seemed to him as if he had seen this man somewhere before. Now, an advocate named Sergei looked at the light brown colored coat of the beggar, and the beggar had dull, drunken eyes. There were red spots on both his cheeks, and Sergei felt that he had seen the man before. I have now had an offer of a position in the province of Kaluga. The mendicant went on, but I haven't the money to get there. Help me kindly. I am ashamed to ask, but I am obliged to my circumstances. Now the beggar continued that he had got an offer of a job in the state of Kaluga in Russia. He did not have enough money to travel to the place, and he wanted help, though he felt ashamed asking for it. But his circumstances forced him to do so. Sergei's eyes fell on the man's overshoes, one of which was high and the other low, and he suddenly remembered something. Look here, sorry, it seems to me I met you the day before yesterday in Sadovia Street, he said, but you told me then that you were a student who had been expelled and not a village school teacher. Do you remember? Now he said that the day before the previous day, he had seen the same beggar at Sadovia Street, and then the beggar had said that he was a student who had been removed from the institution and not that he was a school teacher. And he asked the beggar if he remembered it. No, that can't be so, mumbled the beggar, taken aback. I am a village school teacher, and if you like, I can show you my papers. Now the beggar was shocked and spoke softly that it was not possible, and he reasserted that he was a school teacher and could show his documents as proof. Have done with lying. You called yourself a student and even told me what you had been expelled for. Don't you remember? Sergei flushed and turned from the wigged creature with an expression of disgust. Sergei was full of anger and turned away from the beggar. Now, this is dishonesty. This is dishonesty, my dear sir, he cried angrily. This is swindling. I shall send the police for you, damn you. Now he screamed that the beggar was dishonest and he was a cheat, and Sergei could hand him over to the police. Sir, he said, laying his hand on his heart, the fact is, I was lying. I am neither a student nor a school teacher. All that was fiction. Fiction means imagination, imaginary. Formerly, I sang in a Russian car and was sent away for drunkenness. But what else can I do? I can't get along without lying. No one will give me anything when I tell the truth. What can I do? Now the beggar confessed that he was lying. And he was neither a school teacher nor a student, and he had been a singer in the Russian group and was removed due to his drinking problem. He lied because people would not give him alms if he told them the truth. What can you do? You ask what you can do, cried Sergei, coming close to him. Work. That's what you can do. You must work. Work? Yes, I know that myself, but where I find work? How would you like to chop wood for me? I wouldn't refuse to do that, but in these days, even skilled woodcutters find themselves sitting without bread. Now he offered the woodcutter's job to him, and the beggar wanted to chop wood, but said that even skilled woodcutters were out of work, so who would employ him for it? Will you come and chop wood for me? Who said this? Sergi. Yes, sir, I will. Very well. We will soon find out. Sergius hastened along, rubbing his hands. He called his cook out of the kitchen. Sergi said that his willingness to work would be judged soon, and he walked off, rubbing his hand, and called the cook from the kitchen. Now, here, Olga. He said, take this gentleman into the woodshed and let him chop wood. The scarecrow of a beggar shrugged his shoulders, as if in perplexity, and went irresolutely after the cook. It was obvious from his gait that he had not consented to go and chop wood because he was hungry and wanted work, but simply from pride and shame and because he had been trapped by his own words. It was obvious, too, that his strength had been undermined by vodka and that he was unhealthy and did not feel the slightest inclination for toil. Now the beggar resembled a scarecrow, and his reluctance to the shed was signified by his act of shrugging his shoulders. He followed the cook hesitantly. He was hesitant because he was hungry, and although he wanted to work, and he did not feel energetic enough to do it. As he had promised Sergi, he had to go to work. He did not feel strong enough because he was under the influence of the alcohol and was not fit to do laborious work. Sergi hurried into the dining room. From its window, one could see the woodshed and everything that went on in the yard. Standing at the window, Sergi saw the cook and the beggar come out into the yard by the back door and make their way across the dirty snow to the shed. Olga glared wrathfully at her companion, shoved him aside with her elbow, unlocked the shed, and angrily banged the door. Now Sergi went to the dining room to look outside the window, and he could see the woodshed and the yard, and he saw the cook and the beggar in the yard. They walked to the shed. The cook, Olga, stared at the beggar angrily, pushed him with her elbow, and shut the door. Next he saw the theater teacher seat himself on a log and become lost in thought with his red cheeks resting on his fist. The woman flung down an axe at his feet, spat angrily, and judging from the expressions of her lips, began to scold him. The beggar irresolutely pulled a billet of wood towards him, set it up between his feet, and trapped it feebly with the axe. The billet wavered and fell down. The beggar again pulled it to him, blew on his freezing hands, and tapped it with his axe cautiously, as if afraid of hitting his overshoe or of cutting off his finger. The stick of wood again fell to the ground. Now then he saw the beggar who had lied that he had been a teacher, sitting on a log of wood. He sat with his cheeks resting on his fists. Olga threw the axe towards him and scolded him. The beggar pulled the piece of wood towards him, placed it between his feet, and hit it weakly with the axe. The wood shook and fell. He pulled it up again, tried to warm up his hands by blowing into them, and again tapped the wood with the axe. He was careful not to hit the shoes or cut his finger. The wood fell once again. Sergi's anger had vanished, and he now began to feel a little sorry and ashamed of himself for having set a spoiled, drunken, perhaps sick man to work at menial labor in the coal. Now Sergi was not angry at the beggar any longer. He felt sorry and ashamed of himself to put the poor man at hard work in such a cold weather, despite the fact that he was not fit enough to do it. An hour later, Olga came in and announced that the wood had all been chopped. Good, give him half a ruble, said Sergi. If he wants to, he can come back and cut wood on the first day of each month. We can always find work for him. Now Sergi was glad that the beggar had done the work, and he asked Olga to pay him half a ruble. He added that she could tell him to come on the first day of every month to cut wood, and they could give him some work. On the first of the month, the waif made his appearance and again and earned half a ruble, although he could barely stand on his legs. From that day on, he often appeared in the yard, and every time work was found for him. Now he would shovel snow, now put the woodshed in order, not beat the dust out of rugs and mattresses. Every time he received from 20 to 40 kopecks, and once even a pair of trousers was sent out to him. Now the beggar turned up on the first of the month and got half a ruble, although he was heavily drunk and could not even stand on his feet. He went there for work often. He would do various jobs like shoveling the snow, set the wood in the shed, beat the rugs to remove the dust, and he earned 20 to 40 kopecks for it. Once Sergi gave him a pair of trousers too. When Sergi moved into another house, he hired him to help in the packing and hauling of the furniture. Howling means transporting of the furniture. But this time, the waif was sober, gloomy, and silent. He hardly touched the furniture and walked behind the wagons, hanging his hat, not even making a pretense of appearing busy. He only shivered in the cold and became embarrassed when the carters jeered at him for his idleness, his feebleness, and his tattered fancy overcoat. After the moving was over, Sergi sent for him. Now Sergi shifted to another house and hired the beggar to help in moving the articles like furniture. Now the man was not under the influence of alcohol and he was sad and remained quiet. He hardly took part in moving the furniture. He simply walked behind the vans with his head hanging low and did not even pretend to be busy. And he shivered due to the cold weather and seemed embarrassed when other workers made fun of him for being idle, weak, and laughed at his torn overcoat. When the work was completed, Sergi called the beggar. Well, I am happy that my words have taken effect, he said, handing him a ruble. Here's for your pains. I see you are sober and have no objection to work. What is your name? Sergi said that he was happy to see the change in the beggar due to his scoldings, and he gave him a ruble for his labor and asked him his name, and he had left drinking and was willing to work too. Lashkov, the beggar replied. Well, Lashkov, I can offer you some other cleaner employment. Can you write? I can. Then take this letter to a friend of mine tomorrow and you will be given some copying to do. Work hard, don't drink, and remember what I have said to you. Goodbye. Pleased at having put a man on the right path, Sergei tapped Lashkov kindly on the shoulder and even gave him his hand at parting. Lashkov took the letter and from that day forth came no more to the yard for work. Now Sergei was happy that he had reformed a man. He tapped Lashkov on his shoulder and shook his hand with him. Now Lashkov went away with the letter and never returned. 20 years went by. Then one evening, as Sergei was standing at the ticket window of a theatre paying for a seat, he noticed a little man beside him with a coat collar of curly fur and a worn sealskin cap. This little individual timidly asked the ticket seller for a seat in the gallery and paid for it in copper coins. After 2 years, one evening, Sergei was standing at the ticket window of a theatre and he was buying a ticket. He saw Lashkov standing next to him and he was well dressed, wore a coat, the collar was made of fur and wore a cap made of sealskin. He was shy as he asked for a ticket of the gallery seat and paid for it in coins made of copper. Lashkov, is that you? Cried Sergei, recognizing in the little man his former woodchopper. How are you? What are you doing? How is everything with you? All right, I am a notary now and yes, I'm a notary now and am paid 35 rubles a month. Now, notary actually it's a person, authorized person to perform certain legal formalities. Now, Rashkov replied that he was fine and was working as a notary and he got paid rupees 35 rubles a month. Thanks heaven, that's fine. I am delighted for your sake. I am very, very glad, Lashkov. You see, you are my godson. In a sense, I gave you a push along the right path, Do you remember what a roasting I gave you? I nearly had you sinking into the ground at my feet that day. Thank you, old man, for not forgetting my words. Now, Sergei was glad and thanked God for reforming the beggar. He said that he considered Lashkov to be his godson because it was due to his scolding that he was a changed man. That day, the beggar had been at his feet asking for mercy. He was glad that Lashkov did not forget his words. Thank you too, said Lashkov. If I hadn't come to you, then I might still have been calling myself a teacher or a student of this day. Yes, by flying to your protection, I dragged myself out of a pit. I am very glad indeed. Now Lashkov thanked him and said that if he had not met Sergei that day, he would still be lying and begging. He came out of the pit with the help of Sergius and was glad for his help. Thank you for your kind words, Steed. I'm very grateful to you and your cook. God bless that good and noble woman who spoke finely then, and I shall be indebted to you to my dying day, but strictly speaking, it was your cook, Olga, who saved me. He thanked Sergi for his kindness and he was grateful to the cook. She was a noble woman. Although Sergi had been kind to him, it was Olga who saved him. How's that? When I used to come to your house to chop wood, she used to begin, "Oh, you sot, you, oh, you miserable creature, there is nothing for you but ruin." And then she would sit down opposite me and grow sad. "Look into my face and weep. Oh, you unlucky man, there is no pleasure for you in this world, and there will be none in the world to come, you drunkard. You will burn in hell, oh, you unhappy one." And so she would carry on, in that strain. I can't tell you how much misery she suffered, how many tears she shed for my sake, but the chief thinking was she used to chop the wood for me. Do you know, sir, that I did not chop one single stick of wood for you? She did it all. Why this saved me? Why I changed, why I stopped drinking at the sight of her, I cannot explain. I only know that, owing to her words and noble deeds, a change took place in my heart. She set me right, and I shall never forget it. However, it is time to go now. There goes the bell. Lashkov bowed and departed to the gallery. Now, Lashkov Lashkov continued that when he would visit the place to chop wood, Olga would scold him, and she would feel sad for him and wept. She felt very sad for him and would chop all the wood for him. Her behavior changed him. Just then the bell rang and Lashkov bowed to Sergei and left for the gallery of the theatre. Now we have done with the story, dear students. I hope you like the story. Thank you and have a nice day ahead.